Blood was seeping from a nylon bag, a silent witness to the horror that unfolded in the quiet community of Agwan Sarki, Oroso, near Abuja. The bag, carried by a man known for his godly songs, held a secret so dark it would shake the foundations of faith and love. It was a quiet Sunday evening in January 2025 in Agwan Sarki, a close-knit community near Oroso, Abuja. The day's activities had wound down, and families were settling into their homes. The faint sounds of evening hymns from a nearby church filled the air, a familiar melody of comfort. Amid this peaceful routine, the hum of a motorcycle broke the stillness as it made its way through the dusty streets. The rider was focused on the road ahead, but his passenger, Timileyin Ajayi, a gospel singer known for his uplifting voice and spiritually inspiring songs, seemed distracted, clutching a nylon bag tightly. As the motorcycle turned into a quiet stretch of road, the rider noticed something unusual. A dark liquid was dripping from the bag Ajayi held, forming streaks on the dirt path. Concerned, the rider slowed to a stop, calling out, "What's in the bag?" Ajayi didn't answer clearly. Instead, his hands fumbled with the bag, and his face tensed, betraying unease. The sight of the liquid dripping steadily soon drew the attention of nearby residents, who had begun to gather. Their curiosity grew into alarm as whispers spread among them. Something wasn't right. Someone alerted the authorities, and the tension rose as more neighbors joined the scene. By the time the police arrived, the small crowd had grown, their expressions shifting between confusion and dread. The officers approached Ajayi cautiously, noting his agitated state. They ordered him to place the bag on the ground, their firm voices cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. The blood-streaked bag, now the center of attention, was finally opened. What was revealed left everyone in stunned silence. Inside was the severed head of a young woman, her features eerily intact. The crowd's murmurs turned to gasps, and many recoiled at the sight. Some shielded their faces, while others stood frozen, their minds racing to process the horror before them. The peaceful community of Agwan Sarki had been thrust into an unfolding nightmare. The discovery of the contents of Ajayi's bag would mark the beginning of a story that would shake the very foundations of trust and faith within the community. Timileyin Ajayi was a name that resonated deeply within Abuja's Christian community. He wasn't just a gospel singer. He was a symbol of spiritual inspiration. Known for his uplifting songs like "I'm in Love," "The Living God," and "Faithful God," Ajayi's music carried messages of hope, redemption, and divine love. His voice, rich and soulful, had graced church services, radio stations, and local television, touching hearts across the region. Ajayi's journey to fame began in small church gatherings, where his talent first captured the attention of pastors and worshippers. With time, his music reached wider audiences, and his reputation as a man of God solidified. He was seen as more than a singer. He was a spiritual figure, someone whose lyrics gave solace to the broken-hearted and strength to the weary. Beyond music, Ajayi cultivated an image of humility and devotion. At charity events and public appearances, he exuded calm and composure, always speaking with words of faith and encouragement. His social media profiles reinforced this image, filled with motivational messages and scriptures, while his YouTube channel amassed thousands of subscribers, drawn to his heartfelt compositions. Yet, for all his public adoration, Ajayi was a man who kept his private life well guarded. He lived modestly in Agwan Sarki, maintaining an aura of simplicity. To the public, he was a moral compass, a figure of faith and purity, seemingly untouched by the flaws of ordinary men. But the events of January 2025 revealed a disturbing duality. The same man who sang about God's mercy and grace was now at the center of a horrifying crime. As the details of the case unfolded, the community's perception of Ajayi began to crumble, replaced by disbelief and betrayal. The gospel singer who had once been celebrated as a beacon of light now became a symbol of disillusionment, leaving many to question how well they had truly known him. The events that followed the discovery of the nylon bag's contents marked a turning point for the community of Agwan Sarki. Moments after the severed head was revealed, the quiet street erupted into chaos. Some members of the crowd screamed in horror, while others stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. The sight of blood and the grim evidence shattered the air of tranquility that had defined the evening. Ajayi, visibly shaken, made no attempt to flee as officers surrounded him. His hands trembled as they cuffed him, their commands sharp and deliberate. "Step back," one officer yelled, dispersing the crowd that had inched closer. The scene was chaotic. Flashing police lights illuminated faces of disbelief, and murmurs of shock rippled through the gathered residents. The officers quickly secured the area, placing Ajayi in the back of a police vehicle while forensic experts arrived to comb the scene. Residents watched in stunned silence as they collected evidence, photographing the blood trail and the nylon bag that had held its gruesome secret. As Ajayi was driven away, whispers grew louder among the crowd. Some voiced their disbelief aloud. "It can't be him." Others were quicker to condemn, convinced that his guilt was undeniable. Meanwhile, the young woman whose severed head had been found was identified as Salome Adedu, a 24-year-old serving her National Youth Service Corps (NYSC) term. Her name added a human face to the tragedy, deepening the community's sorrow. The contrast between her innocence and the brutality of the crime amplified the sense of betrayal. How could someone as beloved and trusted as Ajayi be connected to such a heinous act? The news spread rapidly across social media platforms, with posts and hashtags flooding timelines. Residents, journalists, and even those unfamiliar with Ajayi's music shared their reactions. Speculations about his motives began to swirl, mixing facts with conjecture. For those who had admired him, the arrest felt like a personal betrayal. To others, it was a grim reminder that appearances could be deceiving. As the night wore on, the community grappled with what had unfolded. Neighbors who had once sung along to Ajayi's hymns now struggled to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the evidence against him. For the residents of Agwan Sarki, this was not just a crime, it was a profound rupture in their collective trust and faith. Just a week before the events that would shatter his reputation, Timileyin Ajayi stood before a congregation in Agwan Sarki, his voice resonating through the packed church. The sunlit hall was filled with worshippers, swaying and singing along to Ajayi's heartfelt rendition of his popular hymn, "The Living God." His white shirt gleamed under the soft light filtering through the stained glass, a picture of purity and devotion. The church service was lively, the atmosphere charged with faith and unity. Families, young and old, sang in unison, their hands raised in worship. Ajayi stood at the forefront, not just as a performer but as a spiritual leader. His voice had a way of touching people's hearts, filling the room with hope. Outside the church, his name was a topic of admiration among congregants, his music celebrated as a gift from God. But beneath the image of piety lay a man grappling with hidden struggles. Ajayi's calm public demeanor masked inner turmoil. His financial troubles, fueled by high-stakes cryptocurrency trading, consumed his private life, though few outside his closest circle were aware of this. This duality in his life, the spiritual guide and the troubled individual, was a crack in the facade that no one suspected would widen into tragedy. The contrast between this uplifting church performance and the gruesome events that unfolded a week later would leave the congregation in disbelief. The man they had hailed as a beacon of faith was revealed to have a darker side, one that no hymn or sermon could have foretold. On the evening of January 12, 2025, Ajayi's apartment in Agwan Sarki became the setting for an unimaginable act. Earlier that day, neighbors had seen him going about his usual activities, quiet, polite, and unassuming. But as night fell, the atmosphere within his home took a drastic turn. Salome Adedu, Ajayi's girlfriend, arrived at his residence that evening. According to later confessions, what began as a normal visit escalated into a heated argument. Ajayi accused Salome of infidelity, his words laced with anger and jealousy. The tension in the room grew, fueled by his possessiveness and her denials. The argument, which had begun in the living room, eventually moved to the bathroom, where things spiraled out of control. In a moment of uncontrolled rage, Ajayi attacked Salome with a knife and a machete, both of which were later found at the scene. The brutality of the attack left traces throughout the apartment. Blood spattered across the floor and walls, telling a story of violence that could not be undone. Salome's life was ended in an act of sheer rage, a stark contrast to the loving persona Ajayi had carefully cultivated. After the act, Ajayi attempted to clean the scene, placing parts of Salome's dismembered body into nylon bags and buckets. But his attempts to conceal the crime were haphazard and incomplete, leaving behind a trail of evidence that would ultimately expose him. The investigation into Salome Adedu's gruesome murder began immediately after Ajayi's arrest. The police, acting on the evidence at the scene and the initial confession from Ajayi, secured his apartment as a crime scene. What they found inside painted a chilling picture of the crime. The bathroom, where much of the violence had occurred, was covered in blood. Forensic experts noted the distinct spatter patterns on the walls and floor, which revealed the chaotic nature of the attack. The knife and machete used in the killing were recovered near the bathroom, both still bearing traces of blood and tissue. In the living room, overturned furniture and bloodstains indicated that the attack had started there before moving into the confined space of the bathroom. Buckets of water containing dismembered body parts were found in one corner of the apartment. The nylon bags, one of which held Salome's severed head, were carefully examined and preserved as key evidence. The forensic team meticulously photographed every detail, ensuring that no piece of evidence would go unnoticed. DNA analysis confirmed the identity of the victim and linked the crime scene directly to Ajayi. His fingerprints were found on the murder weapons, the nylon bags, and the buckets. The blood trail leading from the apartment to the road outside further solidified the connection. Investigators pieced together the sequence of events, creating a timeline of the crime that pointed to premeditation rather than a moment of blind rage. Ajayi's initial confession to the police provided further clarity. He admitted to killing Salome during a heated argument, claiming that jealousy and betrayal had driven him to commit the act. While his statement was chillingly detailed, it lacked any genuine remorse, leaving investigators and the community grappling with the stark contrast between the public figure they thought they knew and the man who now stood accused of such a heinous act. As the investigation continued, the community of Agwan Sarki became a focal point of attention. Journalists and residents alike sought answers, their faith in a once-revered gospel singer shattered. The thoroughness of the police investigation ensured that every detail of the crime would come to light, laying the groundwork for the legal battle that was to follow. The courtroom was packed on the day Timileyin Ajayi was arraigned. Journalists, residents of Agwan Sarki, and curious spectators filled the seats, eager to witness the proceedings of a case that had shaken the entire community. Ajayi entered the courtroom flanked by security personnel, his once composed demeanor replaced by a stoic, almost vacant expression. Dressed in a simple suit, he looked nothing like the celebrated gospel singer the public had known. As the charges were read aloud, premeditated murder and mutilation of a human body, a heavy silence fell over the room. The prosecution painted a grim picture, detailing how Ajayi had killed Salome Adaidu in a violent outburst and then attempted to conceal the crime by dismembering her body. Photographs of the crime scene, including the bloodied bathroom, the nylon bag, and the buckets containing Salami's remains, were presented as evidence, each one eliciting audible gasps from those in attendance. Ajayi's defense team entered a plea of not guilty, arguing that the act had been committed in the heat of the moment, fueled by emotional distress. They pointed to Ajayi's previously unblemished record, his status as a respected gospel singer, and the pressure of maintaining his public image. They hinted at a possible mental breakdown but stopped short of formally claiming insanity. Over the course of several sessions, the prosecution methodically built its case. Forensic experts testified about the evidence found at the scene, including the spatter patterns in the bathroom, the fingerprints on the weapons, and the DNA analysis that confirmed Salami's identity. The prosecution emphasized the meticulous way Ajayi had attempted to dispose of the body, arguing that this pointed to a calculated effort rather than a spontaneous act. Witnesses were called to the stand, including neighbors who had heard arguments from Ajayi's apartment on the night of the crime. One neighbor described loud shouting and what sounded like a struggle. A close friend of Salami's testified about her relationship with Ajayi, highlighting his possessive behavior and their frequent arguments. These testimonies painted a picture of a volatile relationship that had been unraveling for some time. The defense attempted to counter these arguments by presenting character witnesses, including church leaders and colleagues who spoke of Ajayi's contributions to the community and his dedication to his faith. They argued that Ajayi was a man under immense pressure, whose actions were an aberration rather than a reflection of his true character. Despite the defense's efforts, the overwhelming evidence and the brutal nature of the crime made it difficult to shift the narrative. The courtroom sessions were tense, with every new detail adding to the community's sense of betrayal. Each revelation seemed to widen the gap between the man the public had idolized and the man now on trial. Outside the courtroom, public opinion remained divided. On social media, hashtags like #JusticeForSalome and #Timileyin Ajayi trended simultaneously, reflecting the polarized reactions to the case. Some argued for forgiveness, citing Ajayi's past contributions to the community, while others demanded the full weight of the law, insisting that his fame should not shield him from accountability. The trial became a national spectacle, a grim reminder of how quickly a public figure's image could crumble. For those in Agwan Sarki, it was more than just a legal battle. It was the unraveling of a story they had believed in, a painful confrontation with the truth about someone they had once trusted. The case of Timileyin Ajayi was not just about a murder. It exposed deeper questions about human nature, trust, and the hidden struggles behind public personas. For a man celebrated as a gospel icon, whose voice carried messages of hope and faith, his actions revealed a shocking duality. Beneath the surface of his public life lay unresolved emotional conflicts and private ambitions that had collided with devastating consequences. Ajayi's crime was fueled by jealousy, a destructive force that had simmered beneath the surface of his seemingly devout life. His relationship with Salome Adaidu, though outwardly affectionate, had been marked by control and insecurity. Ajayi's possessiveness had grown over time, and the argument on that fateful night became the breaking point. His fear of betrayal and his need to assert dominance transformed into an uncontrollable rage, leading to the brutal killing of someone he claimed to love. The contrast between Ajayi's spiritual image and his violent actions painted the picture of a man struggling with a fractured identity. Psychologists reviewing the case suggested that Ajayi's carefully curated public persona may have heightened the pressure he felt in his private life. The weight of maintaining a flawless image, while harboring insecurities, financial worries, and emotional instability, may have driven him to a point where his darker impulses took over. This psychological dissonance underscored the dangers of unaddressed personal struggles, especially in individuals placed on moral pedestals by society. The tragedy of Salome's death highlighted how jealousy and control, if left unchecked, could culminate in devastating violence. The revelations about Ajayi shook not only his community but also broader societal perceptions of fame and faith. In a country where religious figures and entertainers are often idolized, Ajayi's fall from grace challenged the blind trust placed in public figures. For years, Ajayi had been seen as a role model, a man whose music uplifted spirits and inspired hope. His actions shattered this illusion, forcing the public to confront the uncomfortable truth that appearances can be deceiving. The case also sparked discussions about the pressures of fame and the mental health challenges faced by those in the spotlight. Ajayi's involvement in cryptocurrency trading, hidden from his public life, added another layer to the narrative. His financial struggles, combined with the emotional toll of his relationship, painted a picture of a man stretched thin by conflicting demands. The inability to reconcile his private struggles with his public image led to a collapse that cost a young woman her life. The broader cultural impact of the case extended to how society views relationships and gender dynamics. Salome's death was a tragic reminder of the dangers faced by women in abusive or controlling relationships. Her story became a rallying cry for greater awareness of domestic violence, prompting calls for more robust support systems and education on healthy relationship dynamics. For the residents of Agwan Sarki, the case left a permanent scar. Ajayi had been more than just a gospel singer to them. He was a symbol of faith and hope, someone who had represented the community on a larger stage. The betrayal they felt was profound. His hymns, once cherished, now served as painful reminders of the man they thought they knew. The churches that had once celebrated Ajayi's music now grappled with the aftermath of his actions. Pastors and congregations held special services to mourn Salome and to address the confusion and loss felt by their members. The incident forced a reckoning with how communities place trust in leaders and the importance of accountability, even for those in positions of influence. The Ajayi case serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of trust and the dangers of unchecked emotions. It also sheds light on the pressures of fame and the human tendency to overlook warning signs in those we admire. For many, it was a wake-up call to examine not only the lives of public figures, but also the systems of faith and culture that elevate individuals to untouchable heights. In the end, this tragedy left two legacies: one of sorrow and loss for Salome Adaidu, whose life was taken far too soon, and another as a stark reminder of the darkness that can hide behind the brightest of facades. As of January 2025, Timileyin Ajayi remains in custody, awaiting trial for the murder of Salome Adaidu. The court hearings, marked by harrowing testimonies and irrefutable forensic evidence, have brought the case closer to a resolution. While Ajayi maintains a plea of not guilty, the overwhelming evidence paints a chilling picture of the events that led to Salome's death. The legal proceedings are expected to continue in the coming months, with the community following closely, yearning for justice. Salome Adaidu's family continues to mourn their devastating loss, their calls for justice echoing far beyond their quiet neighborhood. For the community of Agwan Sarki, life will never be the same. The incident has left an indelible mark, not only as a reminder of Salome's tragic end, but as a wake-up call to confront issues of trust, domestic violence, and unchecked power. This is more than a story of betrayal and crime, it is a call to act. Let Salome's story remind us to protect those at risk, question the faces we idolize, and stand firm against violence in all its forms. The responsibility lies with all of us to ensure that no life is lost to such senseless cruelty again. Subscribe for more gripping true crime stories that uncover the truth behind the headlines. Join us as we delve into mysteries, seek justice, and explore the human stories at the heart of every case.